Good morning, good day, good afternoon, esteemed audience of Global Energy Community. We're so excited to bring to you this webinar today. And we have our expert with us, Mr. Ayodeji Stephen, and he'll be taking us through different policies and the energy landscape in Africa. And just to give you a background on what he does, he has several years of experience as a policy advisor, so he's quite well versed when it comes to clean energy. And the floor is yours, Mr. Ayodeji. Can you please take us through what you have for us today?
All right. Good day, everyone. For the audience, it's a pleasure for me to be speaking with every one of us today, and um, I believe subsequently. So today, I would be speaking on a particular topic that's dear to my heart, and it's on the topic of capacity building and leadership needs as a tool to empower youth for the energy transition. While this can be applicable to youth from almost anywhere in the world, my focus will be Africa. So you oftentimes hear me mention the word Africa a lot. I'm the founder of Energy Gist. I'm also in my 20s, so I believe I'm still quite young. All right. Um, Now, in Africa, there is a need for sustainable development. That's not even a topic for debate. We see that most, if not all, African countries are still considered developing in global landscape. So it means that there is a need for development, and this development has to be sustainable, um, such that it does not hamper the development and growth of generations to come. So, how can we achieve sustainable development in a way that enhances our economic growth, enhances our energy security, and also environmental sustainability and even stability? It's important that we bring in the youth, the young ones, to play a pivotal role, because one of the key things anyone would agree with would be that the youth are very quick when it comes to innovative thinking. It's just the way the youth think, and their ability to develop new knowledge and capitulate on those knowledge to foster development in their environment. So this makes the youth a very critical aspect of sustainable development in Africa. And 60%, if not more, of the current African population are young persons. So it means that there is an opportunity to harness, the skills that the youth can provide and use it to enhance development in Africa. Now, to make sure that the energy transition in Africa is achieved in a way that is sustainable. Like I said, the root can play a very key role, especially in the renewable energy technologies that are necessary, the small scale and large scale projects that are needed, even the workforce, the skill set, the manpower that is needed to achieve the transition that is needed. So one of the key things that needs to be done and looked into is the development of capacity for these young persons, the necessary skills. And one of the things that I want to say to anyone is oftentimes when the African youth specifically are being spoken about and the subject of skills are spoken about, easily people usually say, oh, but there is a training of trainer. While trainings are good, those are not the best of things that will help African youth to develop the skills necessary. Because you would, I believe with me, maybe a training is maybe for about 6 months. The training is oftentimes very theoretical. There are very few um, numbers of practical training. So we need practical trainings, extended long-term practical trainings where the youth will learn the theory and also will be able to engage in the practical aspect, and which would lead me to some of the policy recommendations that I will be making later on. All right, so one aspect of training that we have seen and believe can be useful for Africans, the African youth and youth everywhere in the world, is the enhancement of technical and vocational education and training. Now, what I mean by that is not just that the theory. That's why it's the technical and the vocational. So, for the skill workforce that we need in Africa, skill workforce in battery making, um, a skill workforce in solar panel production, it is necessary that these people are developed in a way that gives them an edge technically and vocationally. I was speaking in a place a while ago, I think about a week ago or so, and I was telling them, I was talking about the critical minerals found in Africa and the energy transition. And I was telling them how that it is important that African youth begin to take the stand in using the resources we have in Africa for the benefit of Africa. So we don't need African youth being told that we have resources, or being told the amount of resources, or just being made to think about the resources we have. We need African youth and youth globally that can take these resources and make them into finished products. And this one of the things I said in that conversation was that if a company wants to come into Africa and take our resources, one of the ways the government can support youth inclusion is to say, hold up, we are not going to give you our resources, but this is what we're going to do. We will make sure that you have everything you need to succeed if you come and put your plant, you station your plants in our country. What that will do for the youth is that it creates an ecosystem where the youth can learn directly from experts, possibly from, you know, other countries, and they can begin to develop skills, take skills that can, help them to become more useful in the global energy transition. One of the things that we do for the youth is such that the youth would not, you know, would not just be earning a means of living, but they will be getting skills that can help them to survive anywhere in the world. Now, let me create a scenario for you. Take, for example, there is lithium in Africa, right? In maybe any country in Africa, maybe Nigeria or maybe Congo, and a company like maybe Tesla wants to use lithium. Well, the maybe Nigerian government or Congolese government says, Tesla, we can't give you our lithium, but if you want, maybe use our lithium to produce batteries, station a battery production plant in our country, and at that, 70% of people employed in your organization must be Africans, people from our country. You know what that does? That has already changed the landscape of things. Those people will be paid and they would be made to develop knowledge and skills. So aside just taking these people and training them maybe for 5, 6 weeks, it is important that there are collaborations between industry players, government stakeholders, and also educational institutions in the country. So, what this will lead is to help us to achieve a successful implementation, operation, and maintenance of renewable energy projects. And the maintenance aspect is very important. Now, why is it important? You would find that oftentimes a project is established in Africa and expatriates come. Expatriate, when I mean expatriate, I refer to foreigners, foreign people that are expert in their field come into the country, and they are the ones handling the project, maintaining the project, and maybe there is a political tussle between two countries and the expert leave. We saw that happen, right before our eyes during the COVID-19. That was not even a political tussle, it was just a global health crisis. And we saw experts from China leaving projects that were at critical stages in Africa and saying they are going to their homes. Experts from all over the world. What if Africans have been trained to work on this project to a certain degree, such that even if tomorrow, after 5 years, or maybe after 10 years, the experts decide to leave that country, that project is still sustainable? I mean, we are talking about sustainable development. So we cannot just keep paying experts or foreigners huge amount of money to have projects in Africa without developing our own local human capacity. The youth need to be given a chance at the table. And I'm not saying that the political discussion table, at the table to lead this project, at the table to, be part of this project from the development to the execution stages, such that if this expert, like I mentioned, decides to leave, the people in the country can even train other people in their own country to take up projects like this. So, you know, um, technical and vocational education and training helps to develop, workforce that has the practical expertise. And one way that we can do this, like I said, I'll be sharing some policy recommendations, which I think is just what I'll be doing now. One way we can also do this is to have our education system in Africa incorporate these technical trainings. So instead of someone going to study engineering for 5 years in school, and after 5 years, the person would then have to go and do, at least I can speak for Nigeria, my country, the person would then have to go and do a graduate training. Why not go to school for 3 years and learn everything? We all know that 80% of what we learn in school we don't use for the rest of our career life. So why not just focus on the key things and go learn these things? And after that, go spend 2 years in an industry, either in Africa or outside Africa. Let that be the focus, and you develop skills upon the, and you are only graduated upon the agreement that when you are done, you are able to skillfully handle your area of expertise. Maybe it's policy oriented, maybe it's technical oriented, but you are able to handle your area of expertise um, skillfully and like a real professional. This will help us to scale up the number of skilled people in the country without we having to heavily depend on foreigners to help us implement certain projects in the country. It's important that we start building from the ground up. And I'm not saying building from the local grassroots alone, I'm saying building from the very elementary stage ground up. We need to look into our curriculum. What is important to us? Those are the things that should be taught in our universities.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but can you make your presentation a slideshow so that it's bigger?
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Yep.
So another thing is to strengthen the leadership and policy skills. Um, I was speaking where I was speaking a while ago. So I was telling the people where the money goes, the policy goes, and where the policy goes, the political power goes, and where the political power is, power is. So it's important that we are able to help people to develop leadership and policy skills. Not so many people, you would, so let me go by this way. I studied in my master's, I did my master's in a department in the University of Ibadan in Nigeria, and it's called Center for Petroleum, Energy, Economics, and Law. I studied renewable energy economics. Center for Petroleum, Energy, Economics, and Law. So look at that: petroleum, energy, economics, and law. Those are fields that naturally would not have anything to do with themselves. But we see that these things are now having several interplay in our world today, especially in the energy space. There is the legal aspect of any project you're doing, there is the technical which and the engineering aspect, there is the political and policy aspect, and there is the technical aspect, like I mentioned. So why not help people to be able to think in a way? This is what I mean. Take for example a lawyer. That a lawyer is able to think and understand basic technical things that an engineer would naturally understand. Because oftentimes you will see an engineer go into a room, or a lawyer go into a room and sign deals without any knowledge of the technical implication of what they're signing. So the lawyer goes into a room and sign a deal that is not technically sound. The engineer goes into a room and signs a deal that has a legal crack. These are things that are quite important, and we need to begin to train people, help people to think strategically, to think in a way, um one of the things that I've learned over the year is design thinking. It's very important. Also, people be able to do negotiation. the I don't know, but I know from my experience, the average African, whenever it comes to the issues of talking with money, we just get shy. And I'm wondering, why are you shy? For me, um, if I do a project, maybe because I've had international exposure a bit, but when I'm doing a project, I don't think in terms of um, um, let me just be able to collect what the project is worth. No, I collect what my labor over the several years is worth. And also helping people to have a leadership mindset. A leadership mindset is one that creates and thinks sustainably. That creates and thinks sustainably. And how do I mean to create and think sustainably? To when you are going into a project, think about the project. Do I just want to do this project because of myself? Or I want this project to last the test of time and be able to serve years to come? A leadership thinking mindset thinks in a way that is sustainable, not just for me, but for generations to come, not just myself, but for the benefit of others, to grow the impact of this project and use it to affect lives, and that's where the sustainability comes in. That is, it is environmentally sound, it is socially sound, and it is economically viable and benefiting to everyone that is a stakeholder in that project. So decision making, also to be able to make decisions even when they are not, the most simplest and the most palatable to be made, especially in the energy space. We need to create rooms for, young leaders, you know to have supportive frameworks. You would find out that while there are so many accelerators around the technical space, there are very few accelerators around leadership. These are key skills and knowledge that needs to be infused into the African youth. And what this will do is that it will help us to be able to negotiate even with international organizations, to negotiate international deals, to negotiate international projects, and to be able to work for the best interest of everyone at home and everyone in our communities. Also, one key thing is collaboration and international partnerships. Now, Africa's energy transition requires collaboration. And this is what I say to the youth anytime I speak to African youth. Do not go to any conferences without a passion and a goal. Do not go to any conference without a passion and a goal. When you have a passion and a goal and you go to maybe an international conference, you go to a webinar, you are always looking for that person with that same energy, that same wavelength of thinking that you can partner with to establish solutions both in your country and all over the world, or maybe all over Africa. So it's important that we look forward to collaboration. The young persons are collaborating with themselves to implement solutions. Take, for example, I lead Energy Gist. A couple of while ago, we were speaking to someone in um, the eastern part of Africa, how we want to establish an advocacy project with them. It's important that youth begin to think like that. And we need to think with a vision, not just thinking about my community. Yes, your project should prosper in your community, but think globally. Think globally, think in respect of your community, think in respect of the global community also. Be able to see how that you can collaborate with international organizations, collaborate with the private sector, look for the funding, look for the network, look for the political will, and be able to leverage on all of these things. And this does not just fall on the youth alone. It also falls on, the older generation that are currently in the energy space, that there is a framework, a platform, an avenue for the youth to easily access these things, that there is a supportive framework that helps the youth to be able to do things in a way that helps them to, capitulate on what they have been doing, that helps them to be able to expand on their vision. Because one of the things that is common with any poor economy is that you find a lot of small scale companies. But we need to begin to have bigger visions, big scale companies, companies that, yes, will start small, but will be able to reach the ends of the earth. So government should also establish, bilateral and multilateral relationships that helps to share knowledge. Take, for example, the development of hydrogen. Yeah. Now, how many youth in Africa can say that they even understand the small process of developing an electrolyzer or a fuel cell? So, why don't we establish exchange programs where someone from Africa, maybe someone from Botswana, someone from Kenya, goes into maybe Egypt, or maybe South Africa to understand how these things are made? And even beyond that, why can't youth from Africa go to places like France, like Italy, like Germany, to understand how these things are made? And therefore, we are building the capacity of our young persons to come home and impact the same knowledge to many others. So, when we are talking about bilateral knowledge should not just be money oriented, or bilateral corporations should not just be money oriented. And I see a lot of that in, leadership exchanges globally in the world. Our African leaders, oftentimes, when they go to international conferences, it's always almost about the money. And this is what the youth must not make the mistake of doing. We must not make the mistake of only thinking about the money. There are other things that we can leverage on. You can leverage on partnerships. You can leverage on other people's network. You can even to access finance. You can leverage on other people's knowledge to be able to implement and establish projects. So we must think about international partnerships and collaborations. And what this will do is to, like I've mentioned, expose us to, the global experiences in terms of networking opportunities, access to investment, and also ability to influence policy making in the energy space. Also, we need to begin to foster an entrepreneurship and startup culture. African youth need to start working and establishing projects. Now, one way that entrepreneurship can drive our energy transition is by, helping leaders to be able to look at, what are the available opportunities in the renewable energy space, in the sustainable energy space also. What are the available opportunities? What can I do? What can I start? Like I mentioned when I started, one thing is how many battery plants are in Africa? How many youth understand the process of battery production? Are youth even interested in production of battery, the production of solar power plants? These are things that more youth need to look into. Okay, so take for example, I don't know about it. That's fine. But can I come up with a model? A model that when others see it, they can decide to fund it. And through this, I am not just producing solar power plants in my country, I am also employing other youth in my country, and I'm by that extending the energy transition capacity in my country. And beyond my country, I can also replicate this in all other countries. Take for example, I established a project in my country with a Kenyan. It already shows me logically, given that all things are equal, the next place that we'll be establishing a plant is Kenya. And by that, once we do Kenya, we begin to look more into the entire West African region and the entire East African region. From there, we grow our tentacles all over Africa. These are things that are important. That we begin to seize opportunities, battery production, power plant making. What are the policy gaps that are in these spaces? How can the youth, come together and start a research organization, a consultancy organization that can fit into this? We don't need European or American organizations to keep doing our policy management for us. They don't understand the landscape as much as we do. And that's the same thing all over any other country. Most countries I know employ experts in their country to do what needs to be done in their country. We need to start thinking in this way. So one of other ways for government and private organizations to create an enabling environment that serves as a platform for these young entrepreneurs to be engaged in things like this when there is no enabling environment, and that goes into our policies. What kind of policies do we have in African countries and all over the world? Are those encouraging to young persons? Is there access? Is there easy access to finance for these young persons? Is there easy access to a good network that they can leverage on to scale what they are doing? These are things. And is there an open arm of collaboration from international organizations that are present in their country? Now, LinkedIn is also one way that people can easily, access several organizations and persons. So this um, entrepreneurship and startup culture can be fostered by, giving access to finance, by streamlining regulations, establishment of mentorship programs and incubation centers that can help people to develop the skills, develop their project, develop what they are thinking about in a way that helps their company, that helps their country, that helps their continent, and helps the global sustainable development goal 7. All right. So bringing all of this together, we would come to see that there is a need for capacity building, and when we talk about capacity building, that would involve support, development, that of skills, and the support will come, like I mentioned, in several ways: financing, collaboration, enabling environment, um, um, and several other things. And this will also the development of young persons. What this will now lead to is the development of young persons. We would have enough skills that that are necessary in the continent, but without coaching people, we would not be able to achieve what we need to. And this coaching would help us to impact knowledge through teaching. People will learn a lot. Also would also be learning a lot from the process, because we will see how that, oh, this was successful. What made it successful? What can we do better in the next generation? What things do we need to start putting into play currently to enhance the development of the next generation? So, in conclusion, to empower Africa's youth with the necessary capacity building and leadership skills, it is very important for the continent um, successful energy transition. However, we will not achieve this if we do not put the right policies, create the right ecosystem, and also for the youth to get serious and involved. To get serious and involved. I often see how that young persons will say, "Oh, there is no money." Money, there has never been a project that started. Yeah, there have been many, but usually projects will not start with, "Oh, this is money, we want to start this." We can start from where we are. We can actually start from where we are, and by this effort, the youth will become active stakeholders in the global space, leading Africa towards a future that is powered by clean energy, affordable energy resources, and also helping our socio-economic outlook to become better while our environment is protected. So yeah, thank you. I believe that I must have learned something. So, very important. It is important that we all see how these things can help us and we also get involved in these things. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ayodeji, for sharing this informative presentation. It answered a lot of questions that we had prepared for you, and I believe that it will be very helpful to the audience as well. But just to understand a couple of things a bit better, I do have some questions that I'll be reading out for you. So the first one is, as a policy advisor and project manager in sustainable energy, can you share examples of successful energy transition policies that have been implemented in African countries?
Oh, okay. There have been quite a bit of those. Um, One of that is we in recent times we have seen now that the training of young persons and capacity building needs are being met through the training of young persons. Um, we have also seen that there have been several platforms. I don't know, but if you look back in the last 5 years, there didn't used to be a special platform for the youth in conferences. Yeah, but we are beginning to see that there are several platforms for the youth. But much more than that, one of the things I advocate for is don't just give us a platform for us to discuss. Take our opinion and implement it. We don't just want you to give us a platform for us to discuss. Also, there have been several financing tools that have been implemented. We have seen that Power Africa has implemented a lot of projects when it comes to mini grid, and there has been an advancement of rural electrification across Africa through the rural electrification program, not just in Nigeria, but also I know that there is a rural electrification authority in Kenya. Um, there are also across several other African countries. So those are ways that have those are some of the projects that have been implemented that have been able to help to expand the energy access in Africa and also the sustainable development in these communities. Other ones have been the productive use of energy. There has been a lot of projects on the productive use of energy where local communities can energy projects are established in local communities for these local communities to be able to power their small scaled businesses, right? Small and medium scaled enterprises. And this has proven to be very successful. There has been a high reduction in food damage. There has also been an increase in the ability of people to meet their own needs, especially those involved processes like barbing, in maybe small scale farming, people that sell cold drinks and all of that across these various communities. And one of the things that we're also seeing is the implementation of electric mobility across several African countries. While this is starting gradually, but there has been a lot of implementation in that. Take for example in my country, Rocky Mountain Institute recently started a project for the implementation of solar charging ports. I think solar charging ports have been implemented in Lagos State, and I think one in Abuja in Nigeria. So those are several projects. I know of Botswana, a lot of electric bikes. I know of Kenya, a lot of electric bikes. I know of Tanzania, a lot of electric bikes. So that these are programs having several names in different countries, but the same goal across the African continent.
Okay, that's really incredible to know, and we're hoping for the best. The next question is, in terms of technology adoption, how can African countries effectively leapfrog traditional energy infrastructure and embrace cutting-edge solutions for a more rapid energy transition?
I'm very grateful you asked this question because it's also something that I always endeavor to talk to. I don't know I missed it, but thank you for asking me. Um, in developing our infrastructural in developing towards our infrastructural needs, one of the things I tell African youths, because the youth are very important. I'm passionate about the youth. I'm doing my PhD. I'm not doing my PhD because I don't have a job. In f- I had a job before I left my PhD. I had a project I was working on. Currently, I have my own company that I'm building. So, um, one of the things I tell the youth is we need to stop thinking um, linearly. We need to expand our thinking, and this is what I mean, especially in terms of infrastructure. So, let's say there is a technology in that is made in China or made in Germany or made in Italy. What I would expect is first, in the terms of the youth, that the youth think, how can I remodel this to fit into the local context of my community? Is there a way I can make this better that its lifespan will be longer, its productivity rate will be higher, and its energy efficiency will be better? That's what I would want us to think. But for that to happen, there is a need for collaboration. One of the things I've mentioned, not just the youth with other youth, but also the government creating also an enabling environment for the youth in this space. Because for things like that, there is a need for a lot of technical training, and that comes into our, educational system in Africa. Why, when let's say we want to teach about electrolyzer, one of the things we can give to, or maybe we can be taught, or I can be thought about. I've not fully thought about this, in my mind, but one of the things that I believe, just as an example, that can be worked on is, why don't an African look at how we can use our local resources to produce electrolyzers in Africa? Is there a way for us to even maximize our local resources? Is there a way for us to improve our skills? Because you see, if we have just one electrolyzer plant, we'll probably be employing 1,000 youth, if not more. Just one, just one. And the offshoot of that is there will be many other jobs created, because when electrolyzers are produced, there will be those that we have to work in the supply supply chain aspect of, the production, down to taking it to those that need it. A lot of things. And these are the things that we need to think about. Solar panels. Is there a way for us to make our solar panel? Even our irrigation. Is there a way for us to make our irrigation better in a way that is peculiar to us in Africa? These are the things I would expect that is taught in our education system. So there is a need for change in our education system, looking into our technological advancement. Also, the need for finance for trainings in these things, because it takes a lot of training. Imagine someone that has never played with, now when I mean play, physically undo um a a solar irrigation pump, and wants to think about how to remodel a solar irrigation pump. It doesn't work that way. So you must have at least seen it, seen how it works, know the various components, and then that is where inspiration comes. We can change this to make it fit into our local context. We can use this instead of this, and then we would increase the efficiency. So yeah, that's how I would answer that question.
That is an incredible answer. Thank you so much. And the last question is, what are the main obstacles that you have encountered in promoting energy access and affordability for remote or underserved communities in the course of your projects?
Yeah, so a lot, a lot, um, and it starts first from yourself. There can be a lot of discouragement when you are not making the progress you want. So you must choose to be resilient and not given to discouragement. But other things are, there are powers that be in any country. I know people say, oh, it's a free world. There is no freedom. I know we try to practice democracy, but there is no freedom as such. There is a form of monopoly always going on. Those economists know this a whole lot. There is always a power that is influencing. What advertising itself is power. We think we just buy things because we like them. No, somebody made our mind to think that that's the best that's available. And that's when you will find out that somebody will buy something and you'll be like, why are you using that? Whereas that might actually be better and cheaper than what you are using. So those are things that and this power have the right finance, they have the right access, they have the right network to be able to influence policy making. And sometimes you see that policy processes are very slow, research is very slow. One of the things I've also faced is little or very low access to resource. And I mean resource now, human capital. And I don't blame it on the youth. There is a high rate of poverty. Take, for example, let's take, for example, I were to be earning 5,000 euros and I have like 2 hours per week. I can easily volunteer, right? But if I've not eaten, you don't expect someone that has not eaten or has not eaten well to be thinking about volunteering. They first want to make money. So while volunteering is a good idea to them, they are also still very much in need of a means of survival. So those are the challenges, and speaks to our level of poverty in the country, the level of hunger not even in the country, in the continent, level of hunger in the continent. So those are challenges that needs to be looked into. Other ones have been the political will. Take for example, you are from a country that has a lot of fossil fuels. There are certain cabals that would definitely not want the implementation of policies. Now, I'm not saying that they will not make the policies. It's the implementation I'm talking about. The implementation of policies that would enhance, clean energy development and sustainable energy development, especially in remote areas. So you have a lot of remote areas where energy has not even gotten to, and what they keep using diesel generators or gasoline-based generators, and then when you now say, oh, let's make for you a mini grid, and somebody is just not happy about it because it means that there is there is a cut to the amount of money that the person will be making, you know. So those are challenges across the continent and across several countries that I know of. And yeah, a whole lot more, but those are just some of the challenges that I have seen and experienced.
Okay. Thank you so much for your perspective, and I just hope that going forward, these obstacles would continue to minimize, or you would be able to see things from a different perspective that would help you to overcome them. This has been such an amazing presentation. I have learned so much, and I can only hope that the audience will also benefit from it greatly. Thank you so much once again for your willingness to share this information. And if you have any last words, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to the entire community. But this is what I want to say. I want to say that the youth must never give up. Um, if we give up now, we'll definitely face it later in the future. This is what I say. For someone that comes from poverty and eventually, becomes successful, excuse me, one thing you will find is that they were resilient. They were resilient. So we must be resilient. We must keep pushing. We must keep fighting for what we believe in. You have a project that is passionate to your heart, don't give up. Um, the winds might be contrary to you, but don't give up. Keep opening up. Keep trying to reach out. Keep trying to get better. Keep trying to work on your project, work on your venture, work on your business, and you would be successful. So yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for tuning into the audience of Global Energy Community. Stay tuned for more updates, and we hope that you enjoy this webinar. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.